Saw a post on Facebook. Something supposed to have happened a long time ago. Something to do with Ann Landers. It's about using some sort of cow reference for capitalism, communism, things like that. And there's probably a lot of issues that you could take with it. Um, Here's roughly what it says. Socialism, you have two cows. Give one cow to your neighbor. Communism, you have two cows. Give both cows to the government, and they may give you some milk. There's probably a lot of leftists that's going to take some issues with that. Fascism, you have two cows. You give all the milk to the government, and the government sells it. Nazism, you have two cows. The government shoots you and takes both cows. Anarchism, you have two cows. Keep both cows. Shoot the government agent and steal another cow. Capitalism, you have two cows. Sell one, buy a bull. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to the kind of the far leftist type of ideas. I follow too many people that are better at that than I am, so I'm going to leave that alone. But the capitalism part is extremely soft, to say the least. That's not how it works. You won't make it far if that's how you're trying to do a capitalism. Not and keep any sort of morals. I'm paraphrasing, but this is kind of what I added to it. You're going to need, there's other people with cows and bulls. So you got your cow, you got your bull. There's other people with cows and bulls. You're going to have to get competitive. Well, how are you going to get competitive? You're going to have to hope that the other cow and bull owners get shut down. You're going to have to try to shut them down, put them out of business. Maybe try to buy them out. Something like that. You could expand, get more cows and more bulls. Well, that's more work. So you're going to have to put in the work, or you might not even be capable of putting it in yourself. You're going to need workers. Where are you going to get workers? There's going to have to be some people that don't own cows and don't own bulls. Well, why don't they? They can't afford to. You're going to have poor people. Or people just help you out of the goodness of their own hearts. But that's not reliable, is it? You want people to, these workers to prioritize your profit over their own lives. Easiest way for that to happen is they have to be broke. They have to be poor. They have to feel fear. You have to pretty much hold their lives in your hand. I went on and on about this, but that's roughly what's going to have to happen. You have to have a steady flow of poor people, people that need things but can't get those things. If they ever get those things, you have less hold over them. You're going to have to constantly search for workers. And the more and more you want to expand, the more and more poor people you're going to need. So in a manner of speaking, the bigger any corporation gets, the more necessary poor people need to be. And, I've been mulling something over for a while, and extremely congested. But I've been mulling something over for a while, and I don't think people really put things like this, and they need to. How would you manifest capitalism out of nowhere? And this kind of begs the question of how it even began. And people don't want to talk about that. But let's just say in some sort of Twilight Zone type of scenario, you get a fairly large number of people, fly some big spacecraft, and land on another planet that's pretty much like Earth, more or less, about the same thing. No other human beings live there. So just these people landed there. So there's no money. There's no nothing. It's just you come out of the spacecraft, you can breathe the air, and you make your own life. How do you manifest capitalism out of that? Basically, you can't. I mean, more or less, you have to, one of these people just has to suddenly declare that the whole planet belongs to them. And they have to somehow get other people to help them reinforce that, or they have to be able to do it themselves. It just, when you try to think of it manifesting itself out of thin air, it won't work. It shows how cruel and just weird it is. It doesn't make any sense. You have to somehow make sure that these other people that's landed on this planet can't have what they need and what they want there. You have to somehow deny them from having that so that you can compel them to do your work. And that's kind of what it comes down to, which is another funny thing. A lot of conservative-leaning people like to point at non-wealthy people as poor people, as in not wanting to work. Literally, the whole point of being rich is so you don't work. That's the whole point of it. And if you don't think that's true, for a lot of people anyway, if you don't think that's true, look at all the things that they have that they can't possibly be taken care of. Multiple houses. I'm not a great housekeeper. I've seen a lot worse than me, but I'm not good at taking care of one. And that includes mowing the lawn and everything else. How are you going to do that with multiple? You're going to have people who can't afford their own house helping you take care of your second and third house. And you're going to have to, you could even make an argument that they're going to have to be busy enough carrying out the normal responsibilities of your life that they have to outsource their own. They might have to have somebody else mowing their lawn, cleaning their house, taking care of their children. So again, think of all the political ideologies and you try to come up with that scenario. People just appear on a planet somewhere. How do you manifest? Which one of them can you come up with that makes the most sense creating itself out of thin air? You can see libertarianism makes sense. But see, only in that context, where everybody's starting with the same amount. That's what makes modern libertarianism look kind of goofy, because they want to play where it lays, and you can't do that. That's not fair. You can't start libertarianism, it's free market, no minimum wage, do your own thing, you got no safety net, nothing like that. After you've already used all this other ideology, whatever it is, to strip people of everything they have, make them poor, and then you're like, well, you're on your own. You can't do that. You have to reset it. So in the case of everybody starting with the same amount, everybody's starting from go with $200, libertarianism makes some sort of sense. But even then, you kind of have to break it off a little bit. As you're trying to build a society on that planet, people would need to work together. And you're going to have some people that are trying to get more than their share. And you kind of almost need some sort of variation of socialism to make sure that doesn't happen. But that in that particular scenario is about the only way libertarianism would actually work. Much as I like many aspects of it, you're going to have to reset a lot of stuff. You can't just play where it lays with it. And I'm not saying something like communism would make sense in that scenario either. Because when you're starting from that, why would you need to do that? Granted, people should work together. They should unite. They should make a community. But it should be kind of more, in my opinion anyway, more free will. In a manner of speaking, I personally look at things like communism as sort of a medicine to fix an illness. Well, if there's no illness, there's no need for medicine. So you get rid of the illness. It's kind of like uh, you could actually say like a union or or insurance or something like that. If you fix the need to have insurance, you fix the need to have a union, you wouldn't need either. And that's not an anti-union statement for me. It's just that it's there to fix the problem. If you don't have the problem, you don't need that. You know, if a building's not on fire, you don't have to spray it down with water. But again, it's funny that, you know, a lot of libertarians want to hug capitalism a little bit too close. And if you look at it from that scenario, it doesn't make any sense. I feel like there should be some other term or variation of the terms that are already there to describe what needs to happen, the way people should live. But you try all you want to come up with that scenario. How do you create capitalism from that? And it just shows you that capitalism must have sort of created itself, and a lot of people already argue this anyway. It has to have sort of created itself from slavery, servitude, outright slavery and servitude, not something that they called, you know, kind of what they have now, which is similar, just doesn't have the terminology, because that seems to be what people care about these days. It has to come from that. And the funny thing is, you take the United States, it came from just stealing. Showed up on a big piece of land, decided it was theirs. And they came from a land where certain people people agreed that they were royalty, and their bloodline was more important than other people's. It comes up with, it's either thievery or some weird nonsense elitism. And then you can kind of branch off, soften that up a little bit, and then you have capitalism. It can't create itself out of thin air because it doesn't make any sense. Because, and I look at it like this too. A lot of people call this oversimplified. I think of capitalism as like the capital letter in a word or a sentence. For the capital letter to have any importance, the rest of the word and the rest of the sentence must be lowercase. If they're all capital, then they might as well all be lowercase. None has any importance over the other one. And I think people need to look at it that way. The whole point of capitalism, in a case like that, using that as sort of an object lesson, is you have this capital letter that must make sure that everyone else stays lowercase. Otherwise, they lose their importance. They lose their power. They lose their significance. And I think if people look at it like that, they'll understand it better. There has to be something to make it significant. In the case of like capital letters and words and sentences, we've all gotten together and decided that that particular letter is capitalized and the rest are lowercase, and we just all agreed to it. And then you have another sort of an object lesson for what capitalism is in the monetary system. We've just decided that. Because the wealth, in a manner of speaking, probably in the whole world, but definitely in this country, is largely imaginary. It's not so much that these wealthy people have a lot of money, it's that there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of money. And that's the only significance it has. You could get every single person or every single family unit in this country to decide, all right, what's the minimum amount, the lowest amount that you would need to have for the rest of your life to just sort of live your own life. What's that amount? And a lot of people would kind of crunch the numbers and they come up with a lower amount. They wouldn't need millions, they wouldn't need billions, they might not even need hundreds of thousands. I know I wouldn't. If those people get that, let's say it's in my case, which is off the top of my head, if I could somehow bring in $50,000, $60,000 a year, maybe even gross, then I'm good. I would even almost look at myself as wealthy. Well, there's people with a lot more than that. But their money would mean nothing to me. They would have no power over me. So a billionaire would have no power over me because I don't need what he has. With my $60,000 a year, I wouldn't need what he has. Now you understand what's going on with poverty, why people are poor. It's not because the need is high, it's because the need is low. That's why there's homeless people. That's why there's people with nothing, people just in squalor. Because the reality is they need so little. So society has to make sure they have even less. It's so much sicker than just, a lot of people downsize it to, oh, wealthy people just can't get enough money. They need more and more money. That's not it. It's so much worse than that. It's worse than greed. Greed doesn't cover it. It's so much worse than that. They need you to not have. They need you, and they need these other people. They need you to see those people suffer and die on the street with no safety net. So you'll know what's good for you. That's your warning. That's there to scare you. So that's just kind of a scattered sort of rant on this, and some of it I may have said before, but that's a good scenario to think about, is think about trying to create any of the political ideologies from thin air, from square one, from go. Like I said, a bunch of people just popping up on a planet like Earth, where there's no government, there's no law, there's no nothing. How would you create any of them? Which ones would make sense to create from that? And yet that way you would decide which ones are the medicine, which ones are complete nonsense and just evil, which ones are just a disease. Personally, I look at, I don't know if there's some variation, it might be different or not, but I look at capitalism largely as a disease. I look at things like communism, and again, I'm not an expert on it. I'm open-minded, I'm willing to change on it. I'm willing to listen to other people. I look at it more as a very strong medicine, psychotherapy, as in like physical therapy. It's to fix how bad the other one is, to make sure everybody has something. I think from what I know of it, it appears to be a little bit overkill. But again, that's just what I know of it now. Socialism makes a little bit more sense. Certainly authoritarianism makes 0 sense. Police state makes 0 sense. I'm not for that at all. Libertarianism only makes sense if you reset the balance, and they're not willing to do that. It'll never work unless they're willing to do that. You have to fix the things that have happened that were so wrong, that you've been railing about all these years. If this system is so wrong, and it's what's wrong people and broken people, well, then you have to fix that as soon as you get power. You have to be willing to fix that. These taxes that you say are theft, well, what do you do with theft? What do you do with thieves? You prosecute them, and you take back what has been stolen. They're not mentioning doing that. They're wanting to play where it lays. You can't do that. So that's just a few things to think about, certainly a few things I've been thinking about. And it kind of helps the conversation going if you come up with kind of weird scenarios and spins and things like that, so people can really get an idea where you're coming from. If you can get people to open their mind to that. And that's kind of a challenge these days.